In this video, I'm going to do number 9A on the in-class worksheet that I did in class on January 22nd. So I am asking you to graph two diagrams, and I say that it's based on the information that I give you in the table. So in the table, you'll notice you have two variables. You have time, which is in terms of years and quarters. Every year has 4 quarters. And then the dollar to euro exchange rate. So first you have to consider, what variable is going to go on my x-axis and which one's going to go on my y. Now, so first let me draw the axes. And then let's consider what goes on our x and what goes on our y. Well, from class we know that our independent variable, the one that does not depend on anything, is going to go on the x-axis. And the dependent variable, the one that's determined by the independent variable, is going to go here. So if I look, I can ask myself two questions. Does it make more sense to say that the year and quarter depends on the exchange rate, or that the exchange rate depends on the year and quarter? And obviously, I hope it makes sense that it would be the latter. The exchange rate is what is going to be determined by the year and quarter. The exchange rate is going to change based on what the year and quarter is. So we're going to put the year, and typically, this could be just a general rule that we typically put time on the x-axis. So here I'm going to label my x-axis with the year and quarter. So I have the second quarter of 2013, that's how I started it, and then the third quarter, the fourth quarter, okay, and then we're going to move into 2014. And I'm trying to keep these as sort of evenly spaced as possible, okay, so that we get a good graph. Perfect. Okay. Now, on the y-axis, I'm going to think about, now I've told you how I want you to label the tick marks on the y-axis. I say start from 0, which is here at the origin, and go up in increments, up to 1.6 in increments of 0.2. So I'm going to try and keep it the same distance on the y as on the x. So here I'm going to have 0.2, 0.4, and so on. I'm just going to go up by 0.2, and I'm going to hope that I don't run out of space. Okay, looks like I'm okay. Okay, so that's how I've labeled it. Now I can turn to say, okay, what are my points and how am I going to plot my points? Well, in 2013, the second quarter of 2013, the exchange rate between the dollar and the pound is 1.31. Okay, so for $1.31, I got I think I said pound, euro, 1 euro, okay? So I'm going to now plot 2013.2 and 1.31, and that would be about, I have to estimate, it's never perfect when you're graphing by hand, but I may be about there at that green dot. Okay, that's my first point. Then my second point says, okay, 2013, the third quarter of 2013, the exchange rate is 1.33. So now I know I'm going to be above the third quarter of 2013, but now I need to be a little bit above my last point. So, excuse me. Okay, so maybe about right there. Okay, so now the fourth quarter of 2013, 1.36. So okay, a little bit above. And we're still not getting, and it's not going to be perfect, but I still haven't gotten to 1.4. In fact, I probably even actually gone above 1.4. So I probably, let's move that down just a bit, maybe to like here, or something like that. Still a little off, but it's never going to be perfect when you do it by hand. Then 2014, I have it got to 1.37, so maybe a little bit above. And then 2014, the second quarter, I have the same value. Where am I? Right about here. Okay. And 2014, the third quarter, I have 1.33. So I've come down just a bit. So maybe we're like right there. And then 2014, 4, I have 1.25. So I've come down a little bit more. Let me see if I can just stay consistent here. And I'm just eyeing this up. I'm not really, you know, trying to, I don't have like a ruler in front of me. I'm just eyeing it up. So 1.12. So I've come down quite a bit here in 2015, the first quarter. So okay. All right. So this is me just eyeing it up. Okay. And so that's your first scatter diagram. And at one point in the directions, I've asked you to join the dots. Okay. So I'm just going to join this so that I have the general. Okay. So that's my general movement. That's your first graph, okay? Now, in the second diagram, I'm going to ask you to change the way you've represented this information. And I'm going to ask you to truncate the y-axis. So let's try and do that. Okay, so now my second graph, so I'm going to come over and start my second graph. So in my second graph, I've said that, so now I have to do it again. So I need to, again, label my x-axis. Okay, so I have the years. I started in the second quarter of 2013. I'm just gonna, and now, you know, we've explained why we're putting our years on the x-axis. Sorry, it's not the neatest, but you get the idea. Whoop. 5, 1. Okay, and then now I'm saying I'm going to truncate the y-axis, which means I start at 0 here, but my first jump is actually going to be a lot more than the rest of my jumps. So I say, okay, allow it to start at 1.1. So at the origin, I have 0, but my next point, and these two slashes here, are going to signify that I'm going to truncate this y-axis. So the gap between 0 and my first point is going to be much larger than all the other points. So first one is going to be 1.1. That's what I've asked you to do. Okay, and then it says, and now go up to 1.4 in increments of 1.05. So my next point is going to be 1.15, then 1.2, then 1.25, 1.3, 1.35, 1.4. Okay, now let me start plotting my points. So notice, again, I'm just going to point this out again. From 0, this gap right here, from 0 to 1.1, I have a gap of 1.1. But then from then on, I have a gap of 0.05. That's what it means to truncate my axis. It's almost as if I'm taking a sword and just slicing down the x-axis and letting it drop until it gets to 1.1 and then continuing on. If I really wanted to do this without truncating it, I would have jumped in increments of 0.05 from 0. So it would be 0, 0.05, 0.1, 0.15, 0.2, and it would continue on. My y-axis would be much, much higher, but it's as if I've just slashed it, dropped it down, and I'm just focusing on from 1.1 to 1.4. So now let me plot my points again. In 2013, the second quarter, I have 1.31. Okay, 2013, 1.31. Now, the first thing you should notice is that it's a lot easier to graph these points. I have more space. Before I was confined pretty much just between two notches on my y-axis, but now I have more space to work within. So now I have 2013, 3. I have 1.33. So I'm going a little bit higher. Okay. Then I have 2013, 4. I had 1.36. Okay, 23. And again, I am eyeing this up. Okay, 2014, first quarter, 1.37. Okay, so 2014, 1.37. So it's maybe about here, a little slightly higher. 2014, 2. I have 1.37, so the same. All right. And then 2014, 3, I have 1.33, so I've dropped down. So I'm about here, maybe. Okay, 2014.4, I have 1.25. So did I even graph 2014.4? So let's make this 2014.4 and then 2015.1. Okay, 2014.4, 1.25. Again, eyeing it up. It won't be perfect if you use a ruler. 2015.1, 1.12. So I'm down here. Okay, now let me connect these dots. All right, now I am going to pull up our graph from before so you can see the difference. Okay, so here is the graph right here from before. Sorry, it's not positioned better. I can't figure out how to make it smaller and what I'm trying to do. So anyway, what you should notice is that these are the same points, but because I've truncated the axis in the second graph, which is above this, this one at the bottom, the movements of the second graph are much more exaggerated than the movements of the first. You know, the first one is a pretty boring graph. It almost looks like a straight line. But in the second graph, because we've truncated the axis and changed the way the y-axis is positioned, or at the increments of the y-axis, it's almost as if we have kind of just zoomed into the area of the first graph that is between, you know, roughly 1.2 and 1.6. And as a result, we get a picture that's pretty exaggerated. We see a large, what appears to be this like large bump in upward sort of shift from the second quarter of 2013 to say the fourth quarter of 2013, 2013, and then, you know, following the second quarter of 2014, we get this dramatic sort of decline downwards. Whereas in the first graph, we see that that same sort of time period, yes, it's showing that it's a trend downwards, but it's not so dramatic as in the second graph. And so that was just the point that I was trying to illustrate in class, that depending on the way that you illustrate the y-axis and whether or not you truncate the y-axis can change the way that the picture appears. Okay, hope that was straightforward. If not, please see me during office hours and I can help walk you through it better. Okay.